Am I here?
Hi,
Am
can
I the only
people
one who's
hear
not
me?
hearing? Here we go. I hear you now. Go ahead.
Oh, good, oh, good.
Okay.
Yeah, I just thought that on the question of trust, maybe the bigger picture is trusting in our government. I mean, because if we don't trust our government to um, govern in the national interest, then um, trust in institutions and everything else will collapse. And I get the sense that a lot of people don't trust the government to do the sensible, rational thing.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know if that's your feeling.
No, it's very much the case. I mean, that is. I mean, that's the crisis, right? That we're seem to be barreling towards.
Well, yes, and I think fundamentally it's about the laws, right? I think people are concerned about, well, not getting assassinated for espousing Christianity, not having the government trans kids, and finding themselves helpless to protest against it, and having the church not really be doing anything much about it. And
Hmm.
I guess in the UK, yesterday we now have a first female Archbishop of Canterbury, and I think that would tend to undermine trust in the church even further. And
All things
just like
aside, I'm just curious. I'm just very curious. All things aside, in terms of policy, why would a female archbishop undermine trust in the institution? I'm just curious for you personally, or for for the people you know and love.
well, I think women are also quite ruthless about it. There was a time when um, women in the Conservative Party actually didn't want female Conservative MPs representing them, and but that was in more traditional times, decades ago, and now it's almost expected. And I think the female influence is undermining trust in
Huh.
many
Interesting.
Western institutions. And I fear, as a woman, that being seen to have a finger in every pie will just result in women being blamed for things when they go wrong.
I can see that. I can definitely see it being women being scapegoated in that way. But men have had a finger in every pie
But you're supposed to.
since there. That see, I'm not sure I can accept that. But I mean, I understand. I'm respectful of your opinion. And I know it's not you're not alone. But I just feel like men have made such a mess of things. Ron, you're almost coming through. Okay, you need. I'll wait for your connection to complete. Ron's knocking at the door, but he's kind of his signal isn't clear either. But no, I just it's the mess we find ourselves in is largely the construction of men. I mean, I mean, if you go back in history, just like the United States, American Civil War was, there were no women involved in that one.
Oh, you're always going to get the blame anyway, because even when it is established that there are too many women in public life, blah blah blah, and the thing is, well, then you shouldn't have let us. Then you shouldn't have allowed us to. You shouldn't have let us take control.
But
So
isn't it a
ultimately,
balance? Aren't we
the
looking
blame will
for a
come back to you.
balance? Aren't we looking for a balance to where it's like we're this is, I guess it comes back to trust, is what's the new equilibrium? We're not going to go back in time to the 19th century when women didn't even have property rights in much of the
Oh
world.
no, um, but I
So,
suppose maybe we should acknowledge that men and women have different preferences. And if we reduce to the bare bones of um, what a buyer and seller would want in a marketplace, for example, then certain commodities would Well, actually, the commodity would be, well, if you're a buyer, you want it to be cheap. If you're a seller, you would want the price
Okay,
to be high.
sorry guys, talk between yourselves. I've got to deal with my person's here. I've got to deal with her, and I'll be right back. Okay, so talk amongst yourselves.
We will thank you. Hi, holy cow, and
Hey, Claire.
Ron's there.
Where's I suppose I'm curious about your could you say a bit more about your I guess lack of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but lack of trust of women in this context?
Well, I sense that a lot of people think women have taken over too much of the public discourse. They are preventing a lot of topics from being discussed, and they are, I suppose, generally divisive and censorious, and they cause men to say things they don't believe in because they don't want to upset the women in question, particularly if they find her attractive. And then a lot of things are just not said and they cannot be discussed. And this is poisonous to rational and honest discourse and prevents a lot of problems from being resolved or even identified. I mean, I do have a particular theory about that, and it is that because immigration is pretty much a hot topic, the tendency would to be to blame certain groups, you know, the powerful groups, Jews, Muslims, immigrants, and I think, you know, all these labour problems that cause mass immigration to be irresistible to governments is a labour shortage, and the labour shortage is caused by a low birth rate, and the low birth rate is caused by men and women not getting married early enough and having enough children, and also the economic environment of the working mother, because the working mothers would have fewer children than the stay-at-home mother, but then the stay-at-home mother has been basically has become extinct, really, because, you know, most people are with house prices the way they are expected to work. They might have, you know, maternity leave, and then they have to go back to work, and this is not necessarily what women want, but maybe they don't say it because they sort of know that that was what they asked for. So I guess a lot of things need to be, well, I think people need to be honest about what they really want, and a lot of people come online to discuss these things that they dare not discuss with people in their own lives in the same room, breathing the same air.
Yeah.
You agree?
Oh yeah, I'm not sure. I suppose I'm wondering, but what do you think there's a breakdown of trust in the relations
Men and
between
women.
yeah.
And it is
I
the
mean, I
most
suppose,
fundamental trust, you know, because if you don't trust each other, you're not going to marry each other, and you're not going to stay together, and you're not going to,
yeah.
you know, parent the children, and then everything from that breaks down, and this has been happening for decades.
So you pointing very much at the institution of marriage.
Well, the culture of casual sex has undermined the institution of marriage.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the thought that popped into my mind. I was wondering about, like, what kind of trust exists in casual sex.
None. I mean, there's a new term, isn't it? Ghosting. You know, you think, oh,
Yeah.
you got lucky. I've had sex with this person. It was very nice. I hope to see them again, and nothing. Right? I mean, that's a new term. I haven't heard of it before, but it's casually done now because I guess with dating apps and things, it's easy to think there's something better around the corner, and there's plenty more fish where in the sea. That kind of attitude and treating relationships as disposable.
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking like almost as marriage might be an institution that solved the problem of trust. It's like for well to reproduce with someone, to build a life with someone, requires a high degree of trust, and it's risky it appears risky for us to trust other people in this way. So marriage is almost this institution that develops, or way in which we organize it socially, that we can come into a bond in which we can express this manner of trust. And then you're pointing to the I guess our kind of just loosely like sexual culture, and the casualness itself might be, I mean, we can also understand that as a kind of trust, and maybe that's there's all the danger and the damage that we can recognize from that, but I guess I'm just playing with the thought of like a casual hookup culture is also a kind of like an extension of a kind of trust in a social body, if you know what I mean. Like for to get so intimate with someone casually, would you understand that as trust, or?
Well, I think a little bit of, someone dies within them when they have casual sex, because then I guess they'll expect the next encounter to be also casual, and then they will, treat relationships as disposable, and then eventually they'll find that they cannot bear the thought of having to settle with one partner in the long term.
Yeah.
And it is a kind of psychological damage that is suffered. Which becomes the inability to trust or to settle down.
Yeah, I wonder, maybe I'm just wondering then, like what is that in how we're speaking now, what is the trust that gets denigrated by the casual scene, or that we're saying you might become incapable of participating in? And then how is that different from the trust of the casual scene? So kind of like, what is the trust of marriage is the kind of question that I'm pointing to.
Can I throw something in on that, if I may, quickly?
Yeah.
What if it's not, it's about the soul? And I'm kind of going Christian woo on you, because when a man and woman come together, married or unmarried, from my theology, they become one flesh. And so when you do that, it's supposed to be one and done, and that's good. And so when you're having multiple partners, you're just destroying your soul, both partners. So that's just my thought. What do you think?
Yeah.
Yes, no?
I'm I guess I'm playing with thoughts, because as the bride of Christ, there is this marital bond between each believer that affords a social bond, the body of Christ, that, well, the aspiration is one flesh, or the reality is one flesh in the bride. I don't know. I don't know necessarily what I'm pressing into, but maybe it's just making a distinction, because in the beginning of the conversation we were considering other institutions, like governmental institutions, and how we relate to them, and how we relate to the way in which they ask us to trust them, and then the broader conversation of how Christianity interfaces with politics, like how we live that out. So yeah, I'm not landing anywhere at a question. Just reflecting that I hear that, Ron. But yeah, there's a peculiarity. Maybe from the married perspective, like what for the Christian who is married, how does that play out? How does that one fleshness play out in the marital bond and then in the social belonging, in terms of trust? I don't know if that's clear at all, but I think I'm just teasing at thoughts.
That's good. Ron, are you with us or not? Could you hear or respond?
I had wonky Wi-Fi. I'm sorry.
No worries.
I heard that you were agreeing with me, and can you say that again? Or what was that in a nutshell? Because it sounded
He was just trying to
basically that
riff
you were
on
like, yeah, but
on the theme. I don't think he can. I don't think it's quite a nutshell.
well,
sort of
okay, that's
thing.
cool. Because so it's getting back to okay, so because there's like three things that I'm seeing here, maybe four. You have Christian government, you have reconciliation after trust is broken.
Do you mean
Women.
Christians? Do you mean a Christian political government, or you mean Christian
Yeah,
government within the church? Okay.
Political,
Okay.
which isn't going to work. And then it was interesting. What is Claire? Is it Clara?
Claire.
I can't read my screen. Yeah, Claire.
Yes, it's me.
It was interesting. Yeah. Hi.
Hi.
Well, see, the nice thing is when you have a woman saying what you're saying, then you won't get your head chopped off.
It's challenging. To hear Claire's perspective is definitely challenging. To some, I think it's just challenging to men in general. I mean, it's very interesting. She has a very interesting perspective. I wasn't able to catch 100% of it, but I caught quite a bit, and I'd like to talk more and hear more.
Well, and I'll say this: if my sisters were here, who are incredibly, I don't know what color is what, but they are liberal. They are the liberal to the nth degree, and to hear, and they're smart, intelligent women who have earned their way in life. If they heard what you said, they would probably be losing their ever-loving minds. But
Bring her here.
Well, yeah, we could. It would be. That's the thing is we probably need more of these dialogues, and it might be helpful for women to intermediate for us because if they had the discussions on these platforms between themselves, it might help us men be less foolish.
This is so weird. We're behind the looking glass. I am now going to defend liberalism. The acid has kicked in. Let's go. My sister, if she was here, I could hear her. If I was channeling my sister, she'd be like, "What the hell are you saying? We fought for our rights through the suffragette movement. That women back in the day were just chattel and property, and we can't have any of this talk. Otherwise, we're going back to slavery." And I'm trying to really give it an honest response. What I think they would be very emotional, and they would just be, because they've done so well for themselves, they'd be like, I'm trying to figure out what their honest response would be, but it would be to defend women in all facets of government and life, and that gender has nothing to do with the ability to execute a job. Except if you're a roofer, because I haven't seen many women roofers, and I'm not trying to be mean, but I don't think there are any women Navy SEALs.
Yeah, I
just
just saw a report on that. They're in every other branch of the service and other branches of the
yeah,
special forces, but Navy SEALs they've yet to
yeah, and I'm not
participate
trying
in.
to
It's interesting.
be
I don't know
mean,
why.
but
Oh,
well, and also
there's
roofers.
Gandalf is amongst
well,
us. Hey, Mark. Sorry to interrupt, Ron.
no, you're fine.
I
This is
just
good.
Gandalf is. I just had to acknowledge. We need to get
Yeah.
you the proper hat or robe, and man, you could really work it.
I could do that. I could find a wizard's hat.
Now you're faint. Talk up a little louder.
I
There
could
he
find
is.
a wizard's hat. It seems to work better if I look in this direction when talking. Don't know why.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if I'm going to stay on because family's around and stuff. But
Sure. Well, did you have any thoughts in response to Claire or
I
Daniel?
just want to say I was particularly impressed. It's the wrong word, but it was good to hear her thoughts. I have a question for you, Claire, if you're still on.
I'm all ears.
So, something I noticed in my younger days when I had a number of girlfriends is,
Player.
I couldn't live with them, but I still love all of them. That's not gone away. So I'm wondering if people with how confusing is it for people with many, many, many partners?
Well, I suppose the whole idea to restore the patriarchy is to say the rules are going to change. We can only choose once, and we're expected to stick with our choice. And those of us who don't manage to do that will be lowered in status. I just don't know any other way of, privileging married parents and, propping up the institution of marriage other than by these measures that no doubt will be considered unnecessarily brutal by many people accustomed to enjoying their dating apps and their culture of casual sex.
Mark, are you still with us? Okay, I see you
I'm
moving.
still here. I'm just digesting. I didn't quite catch. The audio is a bit quiet here.
And nobody spoke, but I suppose I guess I am uttering what feminists would consider to be heresy, and you may wish to remove me in order not to
Heresy!
be heresies. So I'm just preparing myself.
You're not going to be canceled here. Don't worry. It's intriguing to hear your perspective as a woman taking what would be a pretty heterodox view on the status of women in modern society. On the other hand, I'm hearing a lot of this. You have a lot of supporting voices. Louise Perry, I'm thinking, would be a good example. Are you familiar with her, Claire?
I have heard of her, yes.
Yeah. She's a sociologist who has made a rightward turn from her perspective. She began as a liberal sociologist and kind of found that the data drove her to a more conservative position, particularly on the sexual revolution.
Yes, I think it's not that hard to make a case for feminism hurting women by depriving them of the opportunity of becoming married mothers, which they tend to want to become after the opportunity of doing so has passed. And I fear you have a lot of, bitter women who actually, were attractive, intelligent, etc., but they missed the boat. And, sadly for you guys as well, they blame men. They blame men for having disappointed them, for not having married them, for not doing something about the situation, that sort of thing. And I was saying to you earlier, Mark, that in the end, you will get the blame. You will get the blame for allowing the situation to happen in the first place.
My wife and I had we raised our family. We're at this now 35 years almost. We raised our family in we are kind of an example of a very conservative outcome by rather liberal means. There was a period of time where I was the stay-at-home parent when they were very little, because she was the one who she had the career in terms of aspirations and a kind of 9 to 5 approach to life. I mean, she is a professional public educator, and this is her calling in life. I mean, she actually entered it as a church calling. That's how she became an educator. And she's world class.
Mm-hmm.
Taking her out of the setting, taking her away from the profession, you could actually imagine it, in a sense, doing harm by depriving students of her abilities. She's truly gifted. She's truly passionate. And even after, 36 years in the profession, she's still going strong and is amazing at what she does. And she consistently she works in poor areas, economically distressed, always have economically distressed parts of our city, and always moves those kids up. I mean, her kids are a large proportion are regularly homeless or constantly moving around. It's not uncommon for a violent death to happen within one of the families in any given school year. These are survivors of the penal system. It's just on and on. So these kids are enduring an environment of addiction and violence and economic deprivation. And so the work she does is God's work. Okay? To keep her in the saddle, so to speak, I was the one who stayed at home with the kids when they were little. Completely reversing
and you're
roles.
still together.
Oh, absolutely.
So it obviously
35
works.
years together. 35
Yeah.
years together. Yes. And no sign that we're going to quit now or quit in 10 years. So we're conservative in outcome, right? We fulfilled we've raised the children. The children are successful. My son is a PhD in physics, currently employed at a major laboratory. My daughter has just finished her bachelor's and moving on to graduate school. So we've got good kids. We've been successful as a family. We've been successful as a marriage, but we'd reversed roles for a while, certainly. And even but see, and then the flip side is that I was still the one who repaired the cars and did work around I did both housework. I did both diapers and roofing, so to speak, as to put it with Ron, what Ron's talking about. So I've been both the bottom wiper and the manly man all in under one hat, except my wife worked. And her job was the one who provided us, in America, we require health insurance privately offered. So her job provided us the health insurance and a lot of the money. So it's just the way things worked out for us. But we were, all I'm saying is,
successful marriage.
Yeah, relatively, I guess. We're doing okay.
Yeah, well, the point is, you have a successful marriage if you're still married.
Yes. Successful marriage. So it's what I'm saying is I don't. We can have my wife would be very much the one who she'll fight you tooth and nail with in terms of preserving a woman's right to have her career.
I'm certainly not saying women shouldn't have careers. Goodness me, no. But I'm saying, I guess we should craft government policy to what we want most people to be able to do. And I suppose most women would say, well, there's enough work to do as a mother and a housewife, and I might stretch to maybe running a business from home, but I certainly don't want to, go out to work and, drop the kid at the creche or whatever. And maybe the children might be happier that way.
Well, one thing I can say to a conservative, as a bone to the conservatives, is we were both very committed to making sure our parent was at home. We got into before we had kids, we were committed to both giving our kids the best education we possibly could, but at the same time making sure that there was a parent at home, whether it was her or me. We had talked about that basically from day one. Well before we had kids, we were deciding one of us was going to be there, and it just when the time came, it was me. Particularly when they were little. And so that's a very conservative value, right? There was no point at which we were going to take a 6-month-old and give him off to daycare. And that is a kind of liberalism. That village. I mean, I can see how some people absolutely have no choice, either for economics or because some families two incomes still isn't enough. So I can see, and there are extended family breakdowns. So if you're completely isolated and both, even if there are many, it's one parent households certainly have this problem, but it's impossible for a one parent to provide without welfare and be at home. So you can't be in two places at the same time. But say in a marriage, some marriages are so strapped they still have to farm out the care. But I guess all I'm saying is I agree. I mean, we were both conservative and liberal simultaneously is all I guess I'm saying, and it somehow worked. Restoring the patriarchy, say, of the 1950s style.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we get back to that.
Well, I suppose you can propose changes in the law, and then there will be people who, will yowl about it. But I think, I suppose even proposing the abolition of no-fault divorce will have many opponents. I think what prevents many wealthy men from making marriage proposals is the fear that they will be taken to the cleaners under the rules of no-fault divorce by, a species of women called gold diggers. So that would also have the effect of, delaying marriage as a result of the lack of trust in their potential spouse. I mean, people do get quite.
Yeah, I want to hear from you guys. I think Claire's making some really good points.
Yeah, no, I like it. I just want to jump in quickly, and Clara, I like. I think when I was a kid, divorce was rare. You would have a few kids in class. It was just a UFO. You felt sorry for them, and so I like what. I don't exactly know what no-fault divorce is, but I think making divorce more difficult and making marriage more permanent would solve a lot of problems. And then, and I'm not saying go back to this, but I will put it out there that when I was a kid, they had fornication laws on the book. Now, in the 60s, destroyed those, and I don't know how well they were enforced, and that's a whole other can of worms, but I'll just throw it out there. You might not be able to control who's doing what with who, but but you might be able to control who's saying I do to who, and making a divorce difficult and unattractive might be that would be something I wouldn't mind listening to.
Daniel, Mark, Daniel, I'm really
It
interested
sounds
because
like
your generation
they're
is
proposing
really.
shaming people.
I'm sorry. Go. Okay, I have a question for Daniel, but Claire, what was your question to Ron?
I thought somebody was proposing shaming people with broken marriages, and it seems to me that is a cheap and easy way of doing it. Then I apologize, I've misunderstood.
No, not shaming them, not at all. Just the opposite. How can you strengthen marriages or make it more serious? Like, it's not I do for the weekend. Like, and I'm about to open up a can of worms, but I'll do it. I think, and hope I'm not wrong. Yeah, in other religions, I won't even point it out. You can get married for a weekend. You know, they have within their theologies, they have, you can be married for a weekend or a month, or there's a expiration date on it, which that doesn't help. And it's just making marriage something much more solid, difficult to get out of. So I think if you could do that, that would be, it's till death do you part. Let's just, there it is. Like, you either gonna die or you're gonna work it out. So, and I'll give you, anyhow, go for it. I'm listening.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Ron. You're going to marry and stay with this person until you die. So maybe think a bit more seriously when you're doing the choosing thing. And maybe listen to your parents and maybe listen to your friends. And this is a lifetime commitment. Take it bloody seriously.
Yeah.
Let me ask Daniel
I
really quick,
wonder-
because your generation,
Yeah,
hang on, Ron. Because it's your generation, they say divorce rates are actually declining, but because one of the reasons is because you just don't get married as often or as quickly, or marriage is rarer in your generation, and so is divorce, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Where are you? How does any of this relate to you? And do you want the patriarchy restored? And what does that mean to you? I mean, there's a lot of questions for you, my friend.
There is a lot.
Holy cow!
Yeah, that's the one. Maybe I can relate, because I think we're speaking mostly at a family level, and I'm very much of the view that things do move outward in that way, like from the individual to the marriage to the family, and then, or that's at least practically how I make sense of change. Not so much a top-down thing. I can definitely attest to the sense of my own romantic development being, I guess harmed by a deficit in my understanding of marriage. But it's difficult because it's not like the idea of shame has come up, because there's the sense that marriage is this really important thing, but then the difficulty is like, how do you spread that, or how do you communicate that other than by strong marriages? So as soon as like the question of policy or like abolishing divorce or things like this, it seems to immediately like miss what is transformative about or valuable about marriage. But let me just like ground it in something practical. I was at a week-long intensive for a Christian organization that is interested in how to equip believers with representing Christ in culture. So very much this dynamic of personal faith and politics. And in my own country, there's many stats that can be recited in terms of how broken families, broken marriages, the individual and societal damages that causes. But for the leaders in this context, and so we split the one evening, and it was men and women, and so the men were speaking, and a whole bunch of very bold and biblically grounded ideas were being put forward during this intensive, during this academy. But the primary thing that came up for the men in the men only circle was this wrestling with pornography. So the idea that I'm getting at is there is the sense that this more conservative notion that we can ground biblically that marriage is the answer. It's going to be the answer to your sexual frustration, to the way in which desire can harm you. It's good in the idea, but practically it doesn't solve the problem for people. And so this is why I'm pointing to this specific instance. It's the leaders of this space that were men were suffering the same issues. So there's this conservative front of this institution that we must preserve for the sake of society, which you can get behind. But then because some things, this is why like the question I think is like, what is marriage? What are we talking about when we're speaking about marriage? How do we represent that? Can we represent that other than being in a marriage that is strong? Yeah, there's just this inevitable contradiction that plays out in the lives of individuals who take that option in the sense that it's going to resolve these difficulties, but then it doesn't. So that would be my response in general to the sense that a posture of abolition or implicit shaming towards a specific moral norm is going to be a solution. I guess I'm just pointing to the sense of there being problems with that, but the heart of it, I think, would come to the question of what is marriage, and then in the context of faith, that again is marriage between man and woman, and then our relation to Christ and how that relates us to a body, to a social body. But yeah, so Mark, I'm not sure if that
no, you brought up some things that are really powerful and interesting. And one of the thoughts that came to mind while you were talking, whatever itch, try to put this as delicately as I can without being. I don't want to be. I hate being crass, you know. Yeah, but I need to be direct too. Whatever itch, hookup culture and pornography itches that whatever's going on there, whatever need, so-called, that those things satisfy, marriage won't satisfy. Free William said, whatever you bring in, let me go back to trust me, fellas.
Yeah, that was
Trust
good.
me, fellas, whatever habits you take into marriage won't magically go away. Amen. And it seems to me like marriage is marriage. I mean, marriage, Catholics call it a sacrament for a reason. It's a sacred institution that really, I mean, yes, sex is part of it, but it isn't. If whatever thing is driving you towards what is it, hookup culture and the swiping business and that lifestyle or pornography, whatever pushes you into that, marriage is not going to fix you of that. I think one's a spiritual problem, the other is a divine institution that was created. It's almost built in, if you believe the Genesis account, is built into us by nature, by God, to fulfill. And the two don't, almost in the sense that if men, is that, okay, I don't want to talk too much. Daniel, is that connecting with what you're saying at all?
Yeah, I hear you. So maybe I think I'm noticing that, or I'm like pointing that out mostly to put it in the context of the way in which one would posit marriage as a solution, or posit like the idea of the return to some form of patriarchy, or to like the natural gender roles or the natural roles in relationship. Because I'm not sure what those would be, what those I don't think we can be so conclusive about what those are if we are making that kind of claim, if we are making the claim that they are something, and then the claim of what they should be. Yeah, I guess I don't want to muddy the waters too much, but there's complications. So I was pointing to the pornography to point to just a practical point of contact for me, where I see something into with the idea that it's like the morality should change the reality, but it doesn't. So then there's something else that's being asked to be worked with, or because maybe, Mark, I don't want to separate too much, like what draws you to pornography or to a casual hookup culture is not completely alien from what draws you to marriage. Like we don't
There's
want to
some
separate them too
intersection.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that too.
Can I throw something on? Can I throw something in on the
Sure.
hookup culture or pornography? From a Christian perspective, it is a lack of identity that has not yet been satisfied by God, and drives to be married are good. It's not, but it's when a lot of times what I'm seeing, because I've had buddies who've had this problem. It was usually a lack of identity within themselves that was really the issue. The drive is good, but it's when it just goes bat crap crazy, and it's really not even about the drive. It's about fulfilling a need within yourself the wrong way, and the need to be to have an intimate contact. You try to actually have a contact with God, and you don't know it, and you're just missing the mark completely. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
So a couple of things. I want to again emphasize what Rillian said. That, and it's such an exact sentence as well. So well done, Free Rillian. The habits you bring into your marriage. I got married when I was 40, so I'd been single on and off till I was 40. And one of the habits I developed was looking for a wife. And what I discovered once I got married, that habit still persisted, which sounds absolutely insane, but it's true. So that was the first point. The second point, when I met my wife, we knew within a couple of weeks that we were going to grow old and die together. And the question for us became, well, we already know that, so do we even need to get married? And we decided yes, because of culture and pressure, and actually mostly it made visa applications easier. But that was the only reason we got married. We already knew we were going to live together until we die. So what the hell is marriage at that point?
And yet it was important you got married, to get married formally, though. What's the point on the one level?
It wasn't important to us because we already knew between each other. We got married for everyone else.
Here's the thing. Can I not really push back on that, but make a statement. Well, I don't know. I don't like the word pushback because it's just more me tinkering. How about this? I'm tinkering with
Ron,
the idea.
I love you, man. You can say what you want.
All right, no, that's cool. From my perspective, it is actually, there's something real spiritually that happens when you get married. There's a spiritual two flesh become one. Did you see any difference after you were married? I've heard that a lot of people say that there was a difference after they got married, and this is people who used to live together. They said that once they got married, things changed in a spiritual way, and I think that's why it's good. And also, maybe you were already in a good spot, and I should ask the question: did you find a difference after you got married?
No difference whatsoever.
Really?
And
that's interesting.
But you have to understand,
okay,
we got married within I don't know. We understood within a week or two.
Wow, dude! I hear about people like you.
That's like
they make movies
like what my
about
wife and I did. Yeah,
he has this as
really?
well.
Yeah.
I'm not unique here.
No. Okay, let me ask really quick. I'll give Michael a chance, but then I want to hear Claire respond to what we've been talking about, because you kind of inspired us into moving in this direction.
And thank you. I'm afraid I stepped away in the last few minutes, so I didn't really hear what you said.
Okay, that's all right. Don't worry. Don't worry. The nature of live streams. Okay, well, feel free to pitch in when you want to. Okay, Claire?
All right, thank you.
Michael?
I think that this is a really important issue. It really is probably the primary issue. It's something that so this is the book I published, right? This is the rough draft that I had to cut out because I was like, okay, I think I should have something about dating and marriage and there. And then I realized, nope, this is a whole nother book. It's, it's a big topic. So, I thought about it in a long time. And so like, what is your name? Holy Cow? Or I'm assuming it's not Holy Cow, right?
Daniel.
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 I was hearing, I had the screen off when I was listening to catch up, So like the thing with the pornography and all that, so like that's a big deal. And I came in that kind of, okay, so I had a very conflicting experience. On the one hand, I was first introduced to that stuff when I was like 8 years old in the woods with some other guys. At that age, it's very much stirring up a lot of curiosity, more so than, I don't know, actual lust, I guess you could say, but it put me on a path. And then I kind of had the very Christian upbringing with a lot of that kind of purity culture messaging. And So those things conflicting, it was a very interesting thing to try to parse out like what's going on. And I think what I figured out is that the problem with like a lot of Christian churches is that they've assumed a very secular frame when it comes to sexuality, particularly male sexuality. I think it's rooted in Freud's ideas, and it's kind of the problem with the sexual revolution is assuming that male sexuality and female sexuality are the same. But basically, because the prescription to like how to curb that was very much about like you got to put walls around yourself, you got to guard yourself in these ways to not be exposed. But all of those things were basically reinforcing this idea of like this stuff is just so intense and you will not be able to resist it. And that's a lie. Like people have self-control. They can, but they're not trained at all to think that way, So as long as especially young men are trained, in the worldly way to say, yeah, this stuff's super powerful and it's awesome, and then the church is telling you it's super powerful and it's bad, you're still kind of not addressing the real problem. So like that's on the male side. I'll just stick on the male side. The female side. So, I mean, I would say women are very responsible for a lot of wars and conflict. I mean, that's what drives the men to fight a lot of times. So it's they're not it's not to blame them. That's fine. So one of the problems I really came up with is that if you go down that kind of right-wing restore the patriarchy point of view, it's very much about we have to control how much agency women are able to achieve, because if they have too much opportunity, they're going to leave us, they're going to cause all these problems, et cetera, et cetera. That's not very much of a biblical worldview. If you look at like that Proverbs 31, like that's a woman who has a ton of agency. And now it's still within she's a married woman though, she's a wife. And so it's a husband that trusts his wife very much. And you see this in other places too. It happens throughout history. There have been amazing marriages where men and women really loved and trusted each other. There's one couple, like Martin Luther, he is well known for having taken a lot of his input from his wife. But there's another couple where it was about the same time in Germany. The woman is way more famous than her husband. He was like a local pastor. She was writing theology and writing songs, and she was having like discourse with letters with other thinkers, and it's like, oh well, his role in as a husband was to say, wow, you can my wife can do these, she's really good at this stuff, better than me at this stuff, so I'm going to support her in doing that. And like that's the way it's supposed to go, so there's a big problem with the idea of like having anything that's like you have to contain it or you can't control it. So I think the problem with the message is that it wasn't pointing at something higher, and I actually think this is something I kind of figured out, like with the Catholics and their emphasis on Mary. It kind of works as a way to like cheat the system or whatever, because it lets you. Because men, it's not like, okay, so here's the thing. Pornography is not just about lust. It's an addictive thing that gives you dopamine and all this stuff. It's, and actually they say the highest dopamine is while you're searching for the next thing that you're going to watch. It's not even in the watching of it. So it's literally the idea that this is going to give me the thing that I need. So it works just like any other drug or alcohol or anything.
What about hookup culture, Michael? Because it seems to me that you get the same level of rush, if not more so, when
Yes.
you are adventuring out and engaging with strangers at that level of it's like
Yeah, that's just that's
it's like
just the thing
rock
for
climbing,
the
the same
poor
kind of
people.
insane rush. You're taking an extreme risk, right? Extreme physical risks, and so and if you survive it,
Yeah.
you got both the immediate pleasure, but then you've got that kind of, whew, that was a wild adventure. I mean, it's like I almost have, the same thing with rock climbing. I almost fell 1,000 feet to my death, and I didn't.
Yeah. So I mean, I think the thing is people, and the thing is that, and it's true, like for both either way. But people use these things to kind of address a whole bunch of other issues. It's their
and that
their
marriage is not
father
going to
issues,
solve.
their mother issues. Yeah. No. Well,
Marriage isn't
not
going to
gonna-
fix
no, it
the
doesn't
stuff
solve-
that drives you to risk your well-being.
yeah.
And-
It doesn't solve a problem, and so maybe that's even some of the sense that because well. It is the answer to all that. Like marriage is the answer to like what is your sexual drive for? It's for reproduction, and marriage is the way to accomplish that. And it's the way because birth rate roughly is 50-50 male and female. So monogamy is kind of a just a simple math to figure out, at least in a general scale. You don't have hordes of barbarians running around, so so it solves a lot of problems, but the whole thing with this trust thing is that we've put our energy into mitigating risk instead of training people up to handle responsibility, and so I think because like so as soon so I'll share this openly. So as soon as my wife and I got married, she had also received some of that culture purity culture training from the church, but it affects girls very differently because it's like sex is bad, don't even think about it, like and so like it was hard for her to switch to like it's okay now, like, and this is a thing that's happened to a lot of women that go through this experience. Like, they don't know how to switch their thinking to like, this is something I've been taught is bad and dirty, and you must not do it at all costs. And then all of a sudden, it's totally okay. For me, I quickly realized like, oh, anything that I thought I learned about what I might enjoy from pornography, I got to throw that out the window, because I have to just do everything to make sure that I am loving and caring for the person that I'm actually married to in the way that makes them feel loved and safe and trust and all that. And, it's not like it happens overnight, but basically that was, working through that, it was some of the way, I figured out, like how the teaching that we received was kind of bad. I mean, but it was effective in a sense, because neither of us had ever had sex before our wedding night. So it worked, but it in some regards, but it was complicated. It had a lot of problems.
Would you say somewhat misdirected? Even though it worked at a certain level, did it work accidentally? How about that?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, well, so I understood, like, and it's like my parents were, open, like, sex is wonderful in marriage. It's for marriage. Marriage is wonderful, and they told me these things. Some of maybe getting that influence a little too early with kind of the sensory. My perception of what that was got warped a little bit. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't think that it's it's not. I don't like to think about like what could have been better, because this is kind of because then you always go into that safetyism, and you can't prevent every harm and every risk. The only way you can do this is to have solutions that fix these things, forgiveness, and working through stuff. So, because
funny thing, Michael, I'm sorry. You've thought through so much of this very well, and you've been very articulate. On the other hand, I can't help but feel like you've abstracted a little bit the conversation, or maybe it's the male instinct. We've all guilty of this. We've because Claire came in talking in really concrete terms.
Well, I can tell you how the female. I did. Okay, I can tell you.
You're gonna give. I just. Well, Mike's coming in to tell us both points of view.
Tell me how the females think. Go for it.
No, I will in some sense. Okay, because the world that we live in, we have this safety state and this totalitarian thing. I think the guy most responsible for that is Jean-Jacques Rousseau, and the interesting, social contract and all that.
Quite possibly the most misogynistic philosopher of the Enlightenment era. Go ahead.
And here's the thing: he put his philosophy in. Everybody loves this "medium is the message" quote, right? He wrote his philosophies in the form of a romance novel. And who's been checking what's in romance novels between then and now?
Interesting. Okay.
Most men are totally ignoring them. I mean,
right. No, there are philosophies to be had in them, no doubt.
Yeah, and the thing is that the fantasy that it kind of puts out there is there's like, I didn't get. Sorry for the dog. I didn't give into that passion, but what if? It's like, or it's just always thinking about like that bad boy that's off in the distance, and it's this thing of always like something more.
Mm-hmm.
And what it's come up to is like, so now if you have this kind of left-right political divide that's very closely aligned with men and women, the left is like the boyfriend that is making all these promises to women. I'll give you everything you want. And essentially, the state has assumed a lot of the responsibility that was once on husbands to provide for women in all these things.
But that's what Claire came in and saying she's ready to throw out.
Well, yeah, because it's not. Well, see, because to do that, what have you had to do to men? You've had to tell them that their masculinity is toxic, and you've curtailed their paths towards. You've made, and this is why I think thing is like the progression of like finding a career. And all that, it's all in pursuit of having the wife and the children. Like it's those first steps that have become so difficult, and with and if it's too hopeless for men, like what's his name, Chris Williams, he says like the whole pornography thing is male sedation. So it's like. The only reason why we haven't had some kind of a uprising of young men already is just because they are sufficiently anesthetized by the free availability of pornography and video games and other things. But if that goes away, they're going to rise up.
But you know what? I guess it's Danny, but all of you guys have helped me. A new idea has just spawned, and I'm going to have to play with it a lot here. But I'm seeing through this conversation that video game culture, or it's just if you want to call it addiction, that's fine. But say excessive video game participation and pornography and hookup culture are all feeding the same demons or the same demon in by different means, but they're all, you could group them as there's a grouping there that I just want to explore. And I want to hear from everybody else too.
I talked about this on a previous live stream. If you go back to the Tale of Gilgamesh, his best friend Enkidu was domesticated by a prostitute. Mm-hmm. And I remember first reading that and thinking, what the? And then it wasn't until I heard Jonathan Pageau talk about the Whore of Babylon that I connected to exactly what Michael just said. And then it also gave new meaning to the story of Beauty and the Beast, in that how Beauty tamed the Beast was not her sweet words, it was satisfying his itch, as you said, Mark, earlier. And this is true. Michael's absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just saying, you know, this is an ancient thing. We've known about this for thousands of years.
I want to hear from everybody else, but I also want to talk about this restoring a patriarchy, because I'm not, as a liberal, I'm a little bit, not allergic, but just, I want to be careful. I want to be careful because which patriarchy are we talking about? Because you go far enough back.
The word is problematic.
Yeah, maybe.
Why
the
don't you
Roman
just let go of the liberal?
Well, the Roman patriarchy, right? A Roman patriarch, a citizen, had full discretion over his family. He could sell his children off as slaves or prostitutes. He could murder his wife. He could do anything he wanted to do, depending on status, of course. He could rape his slaves, and of course, it wouldn't even be called that, right? They didn't even have a. And then talk about the nature of sexual infidelity in the Roman patriarchy is completely different from our own. I mean, it was one of the things that the Apostle Paul is reacting to in Roman culture was basically pederasty. Right. It was institutionalized in the Roman patriarchy. So when we talk about patriarchy, I know we're not talking about pagan patriarchy of antiquity. So then when we use the term, what do we mean by it? And is it a term maybe that's best just discarded and come up with a new one? Or if it's, how do we adapt it to our modern times so that we're kind of, it's something we have a chance anyway of all buying into, at least to one degree or another?
My theory, it's half-baked, okay, so just give me space and know that there may be big holes in it. But I think patriarchy is a very rare thing, and we're deluding ourselves.
Well, it wasn't rare at certain times. You mean today it's rare?
Today, I think it's always been rare.
Would you say, are you talking about, say, then a godly patriarchy versus an ungodly? Because the ungodly was quite common.
No, whoever raises the children rules the house. That's what I'm saying. Hey, Steph.
Hello.
Welcome. This is so wonderful. I've got two women on the same live stream. This is amazing. Go away, guys. You're all gone. I want to hear only from the girls. No, but thank you. This is terrific. Finish your thought, Mike, Mark, and then.
Whoever raises the children rules the house. I think it's very simple. And as mothers mostly raise the children, then mothers rule. And there are very few exceptions to this situation.
Real quick response. I'm trying to understand Electrotechnic's question. People just, if you want to do a rando with me or want to talk and record something, or speak privately, my email address is redlandsvillagemark@gmail.com. It's available. You can see it on I'll put it in this chat. And if anybody wants to talk, you can connect with me there. Okay. Let's hear from whoever wants to talk, but Stephanie came in. So if you've limited on time, you get to go first as the guest.
Thank you. Well, this talk, I'm with you there, Mark. The talk of the patriarchy, return of the patriarchy, just the language we use, I think, if you for the women in general, I think that just triggers things. And what does that mean? And I'm someone who is, I think, pretty much traditionalist, and I read uh, you know, Louise Perry, and I thought she was spot on in her critique of maybe fourth generation or late stage feminism and some of the downsides and how it's shaped our society. I thought she was 100% spot on. But yet, I also heard Louise Oldfield talk about, as she was coming into Midwestshire and she did that interview or the pre session, that just somehow it made her feel uncomfortable, a little bit. It's like it's just a very male dominated space and she was the only woman there. And, so where are we going with this? How can we fix this in a way that doesn't invoke, you know, the feeling of going back in time to where women had, limited rights and, couldn't own property and didn't have credit cards.
Well,
And
women and children. I mean, when we gained a lot of protection for children in the culture when we improved a lot of women too. So it's
so,
a lot
so
of
I think
people benefited from some early, at least our first stages of feminism anyway.
for sure. So I think the question is just how do we, I don't think you can put the genie back in the bottle or whatever, but I think there's just we have to think about how to talk about this very carefully. Um, because I do agree that there are definitely downsides to, for men and women in terms of where we are today with hookup culture and pornography and the OnlyFans and the birth rate is down. But these are serious societal and spiritual
Mm-hmm.
problems, And I want to commend, I mean, everyone on this conversation for being so honest, especially Michael in your description of the purity culture and the impact of that. And I think it takes a lot of honesty. And just full disclosure, I've been married for 41 years. I got married young. We have one daughter. We're still married. I would say a happy marriage. Um, but anyway, so those are just my initial thoughts. Just how do we go? How do we go back to, how do we solve this problem without invoking,
And does it
these
relate to the
fears?
beginning of this conversation around trust, right? I mean, does trust play into this? Because I guess because so much of when I think of the Me Too movement of 2017, it seems like ancient history at this point, even though it was less than 10 years ago. It was so explosive and so both horrifying, the stories that came out, but then the reaction was so militant and some of the retribution seemed scattershot
Hmm.
and disproportionate sometimes or uneven or unfair in how it came about, and to a point where it just undermined trust. It seemed to perpetuate more and more of this degradation of trust in the culture. So
Thank you. I think you're spot on with that, Mark. And in fact, that's one thing I was going to say. Some of these conversations, it just sounds like we're the genders, the sexes are uh, adversaries, and we're not. We're supposed to be partners, right?
right. But if men had behaved honorably prior to 2017, right? If Harvey Weinstein hadn't been allowed to run amok
Hmm.
for 3 decades, he created the conditions for his own destruction.
Yeah.
As did, so there's a both and thing going on here, and yet we need to recover from it. It seems to me, and that goes to that restoring of patriarchy that maybe Claire described.
I didn't get to hear. I didn't get to hear Claire's
Yeah. Well, I mean,
thesis or statement.
she's great, and I don't know if she's with us still or not, but she's
Yes, here I am.
okay.
Well,
What do you
I was
think?
just saying that the government, if it wanted to, could easily support marriage with laws, right? And it doesn't wish to do so because I understand that the difficulties of pushing, I mean, what a lot of people would say, trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. But I don't see that it's impossible. You just have to, prepare the ground, make the arguments, persuade reasonable people, and, particularly women, and saying, really, most women would, rather be mothers than not be mothers at the end of the day. And if you want to raise a birth rate, how else are you going to do it but encourage earlier marriage and support the institution itself?
How does France is one of the few European countries that seems to be doing a okay job at maintaining birth rates. And they're the antithesis of American Christian. I mean, they are the ultimate kind of top-down secular society, right? I mean, the seculum gets primacy, right? Anything that threatens the seculum, the secularity of the state, gets a big hit, right? Women can't wear the hijab, men, and they can't wear. You can't be. I don't think you're allowed to wear crosses if you're an employee in a public space. I mean, they have lots of things that restrict what we think would be. I mean, as an American, I typically think of what supports family and supports marriage is very Christian and churchy, and they are pushing it in the other way. Yet they are being somewhat successful at dealing with at least birth rates. Any thoughts there?
I've looked up AI overview, and it says France's total fertility rate was 1.62 children per woman in 2024, a new low, though still the highest in the EU, according to Le Monde.
Right. It's not success,
and it may be Muslim birth rates.
That's what I was going to ask, actually. Is it
That's
the immigrant
possible.
population? Yeah.
That's a good point, guys. Good point. Interesting.
Yeah.
I would
Daniel?
love to jump in. Yeah,
Please.
I've heard it that there's one way to express a female fantasy is reproduction without the need for a man, and this is becoming a possibility, or like we have. I don't know too much about the science or the technology, to be honest, but the possibility of inception and then having a baby, the need for a man is becoming less and less, reduced to just the sperm. And people report that this is even desired or a fantasy that women have, that they can do the reproductive process without the man. So the way that I'm tracking this conversation, because we also had the beginning in trust, and then trust in relation to institutions. So if marriage is not just the bond formed around the making of a child and the protecting of a child, which maybe we don't want to reduce it to that. And our first indication of that is that we immediately speaking about trust and trust of the individual in other societal institutions. Like, that conversation brought us to marriage. So I'm wondering, like, what does marriage, maybe is the idea that's being put forward, does it cultivate a kind of capacity for trust or participation that is important for society in a wider sense, that is distinct from reproduction, from the trials of reproducing and raising? And then the idea that this might be something that we need to think about, especially if you want to put forward the value of marriage, is that the technology and the cultural, there is a cultural feeling for reproduction in non-normal senses, or at least like that fantasy that I spoke about in the beginning, like without the need for man. then just this conversation has helped me kind of tease those pieces apart, because I think there is an account to be made for the value of marriage distinctly. And I think it links also to, Mark, you brought in maybe the common demon of pornography, hookup culture, and gaming. But it's this like, what is it? So Mark, we initially connected. You hosted a House of Woo around this question of OnlyFans ministry. I saw you posted something about that, and I jumped onto the call, and we met and conversed. And my at least relation or my experience in the church is that there's something here that I know you might have some proximity with, Mark, like an account of self-mastery that has to do with relating to these bodily energies that would be important to not become hostage to or subjected to what hooks people into pornography or the like, where we are identifying demons. That might be analogous to how we can identify the value in marriage, like what marriage cultivates. But in order to do that, we have to pull it apart from valuing it in the reproductive, or simply as that. Like, and the last thing, it's just repeating, but the reason why this thought is afforded is because we started with the idea of trust, and trust in wider or governmental institutions, and that brought us to marriage. And so let me stop there.
Would you mind if I asked you a personal question, and feel absolutely free to decline to answer? All right.
Sure.
I don't know anything about your personal life whatsoever, Daniel, but I'm wondering, as a young person, I take it you're still single?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. You don't have to answer any of this. So
no,
I am. But you could even answer for your peers. So if you could answer the question by pointing to someone you know, intimately or well, of your generation. Do you see people with opportunities to make lifelong commitments in marriage who either delay or forego making the leap, the commitment? And then what are the obstacles? Is trust? Is there the ability to trust the inhibitor, or maybe the inhibiting factor, or an inhibiting factor that prevents you from taking the leap, or your peers, or what you see in your generation? Answer that any way you want, or not at all.
I'll answer it very personally, because it links into faith and coming to faith. But before being saved, being born again, baptized around April last year, I was pursuing a lady, and I ended up proposing 3 times. So I was very invested in this direction. But each proposal obviously was some degree of a failure, and I failed in unique ways in each instance. To make the proposal maybe like full-heartedly or readily, but there was this sense in me that that's where I wanted to take that relationship, or inviting that relationship to go there. Then the coming to Christ was relevant in the breakdown of that relationship. Then in the wake of coming to Christ, I've had very little desire to be in any form of romantic relationship. Then I've seen like the opposite of this, not someone I know personally, but someone who's on social media. He's coming from a context of he had been involved in the project of trying to identify as a woman. He's a man, and he came to Christ, and that was reversed. And he's been recording his process. His name is Nisa. And immediately a girlfriend came into his life, and it's quite a it's quite touching to get these little snippets of his life. But so that's my immediate personal relation with those dynamics. Then if I were to assume about people closer to me, like friends who are in committed relationships, who I mean, I have a friend who they've bought property before they've made that commitment to one another. I think there is something about the confusion of intimacy that happens through relating sexually prior to that, like a socially shared recognition and ceremony of marriage. That there's the assumption of a commitment that basically is marriage but hasn't been codified or I think what I shared also earlier in terms of my own sense of I didn't carry the I guess marriage wasn't framed, or I didn't relate to it. What am I trying to say? It's like it was a non-normal discovery for me to discover that I desired to marry. If that makes sense. Like before that,
non-normal. I mean, that's the word that just jumped out at me. Non-normal. Interesting. Could I ask? Finish your thought.
No, well, what was normal to me was that like you can engage sexually, casually. I wasn't disposed to. I mean, apart from including alcohol in the situation, I wasn't disposed to the casual sexual encounter or relationship. But that was the background normality, very much in the culture that I related to. So it was a form of surprise to recognize this desire for marriage.
Well, Michael disappeared on us, but I'd like to hear from you guys, Stephanie or Claire or Mark.
Sounds like you were surprised. It was unexpected. Holy cow! What is your first name?
Yeah, Daniel.
Daniel. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I can relate to that in that I'm 62. But I think same age as you, Mark, and Pastor Paul, right in that same age group. I don't know how old Mark is, but it's a different time. So when I met my husband, I was also surprised because I had bought into, this was the early mid 80s. The time was different. Women you can do anything. Mary Tyler Moore, you can have it all. You can be it all. You can do it all. Have children, have a wonderful career, have a wonderful life. So anyway, so I really had thought I would delay marriage, but I met my husband. He was in the military, and it was a little bit like Mark Jackson in that I just knew he was. I don't know how or why. I think it's a gift. I thought it was a spiritual gift that we knew we were right for each other, and we did get married quite young. I was 6 days shy of 21. So that's my experience. I can relate to the surprise moment. And then of course I had to I learned a lot in my 20s about that dream of having it all, being it all, that whole feminist dream being a dream. The reality of life is we had a child, and it was really hard for both of us to work and to raise her and to find a way. And we were away from family. So that was a hard well, you grow up and you make trade-offs, and so I did continue to work, but I always felt like there there were times when I would have wanted to be home with her. There were times I probably would not have handled being home real well, but there were times I really would have wanted to. So, but through it all, we worked together, and we, were able to communicate, and there were some ups and downs, but I wouldn't say anything. It was never. There was never a question that the marriage would continue. There was never a question that we would figure it out. So I guess I would say, when you get that feeling, that the desire for marriage, then it's good to honor that. It's good to honor that.
Well, and I can just a little thing to toss at you, Daniel, is I had a similar experience before I got married, where I kept investing in somebody that was never going to reciprocate. So, it's there's a bit of, because of the nature of our system, we don't have arranged relationships, arranged marriages. So we do have to have these forays that kind of are dead ends or half starts or whatever, but doesn't necessarily mean that the impulse or instinct was wrong. It just didn't find a worthy
Recipient.
partner. Because I can imagine, pardon me, Mark, PVK and I have talked about having, or we want to set up a corner matchmaking service, because we can imagine this is a worthy man, ladies. We could find.
Oh, I think I need to be part of that.
That would be a great, yes. All those old people would do yes, anybody over 50 can be the matchmakers.
I will pick her for you. I will pick the one.
We got a girl for you. Yes. But there is one thing. Here's the question that Claire brought up. I don't know if she's still with us. She's muted. But the idea of government policies supporting marriage, or at least not undermining marriage. And then I wonder if should government just get out of the business of marriage, and it should be just a purely religious or Christian institution, or is the government have a role? Would that be the best thing for a marriage if government just got out of it, or does the government just are there active policies to pursue?
Well, I think, the government already has a registry of births, marriages, and deaths. So I'm assuming that they feel, they have felt for centuries that they have a role in promoting marriage and breeding its citizens to produce a next generation. Otherwise, they would, be a peopleless nation, or a less prosperous one, because I think a lot of the labor cost is to do with the supply of labor, if you want to take a Marxist view on labor relations. So I think
but you made the point. No, but I was just saying, you made the point that they've been actively undermining marriage. So there's something has to change, right? Either government needs to stop what it's doing, and but then if it's to play a role, then what are the ways it can actually be supportive of marriage? There's the cynical take that, or skeptical anyways, take that Neil puts forward, is the government is in the business of propagating a tax base, but it can do that, it seems to me, and not.
Well, it could stop
I just
the incentive.
need to parse out, I guess,
It
is
could
what I'm
stop
asking.
the incentive of being a single parent. If there's incentives in being a single parent, which I believe there are, in terms of support for children and single mothers.
Well,
right?
the alternative, though, is then you end up with a lot of starving children on your hands.
No, I don't mean it that way. It couldn't. I mean it the opposite way. So if a low-income families that are with both parents should be entitled to as much support as single parent.
Right.
Well, okay, here's idea. If I were the government, I would say, I hear you people are very concerned about immigration and you don't like it. But the fact that there isn't enough of a labour force to do the work we need doing makes the demand for cheaper, more willing immigrant labour irresistible. So if you don't like immigration, well, you have to change your ways about how you think about marriage and parenting and children. That would be a start.
You're not
You
wrong.
bargain with people.
Mark is speaking rather animatedly with a knife in his hand.
But we can't hear you.
I make very good. What do you call them? French fries, chips.
Oh, okay.
And my son was asking me how I make them so good. So
Gotcha.
cutting,
And you're waving this thing around. Okay. Steady there, Mark. Steady. This is good, guys. Any other thoughts? We've been at this now for almost 2.5 hours. I probably should wrap it up and give way to McMove or whoever wants to, whatever else is going on in the corner. But this has been a first-class panel. I really appreciate the new faces and voices. Excellent. Please come back again. If you don't think we finished it, please go on. I'm not necessarily cutting this off short, but I'm just putting it out there. Go ahead, Daniel.
I don't think I'm starting anything new. I'm just Stephanie's response. I realized that the more accurate word was probably, rather than being surprised, was coming to a place of honesty about the desire. But that the honesty was a surprise. If that clarifies anything, which links to this, yeah, it's a do we have to stress ourselves about the codification or the laws around something that would be natural? If we are in the position that this is a natural desire that finds a certain expression, then it seems we wouldn't need to fret so much about it. But I just wanted to say that more honesty than surprise.
And honesty requires trust. Kind of back to that in a sense, it seems to me.
And courage.
And courage.
Yeah. Good for you.
Yeah.
That you got to that point.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, thank you, Mark, for having me and this very simple discourse. I'm very grateful.
Back at you. Thank you very much, too.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I'm going to shut her down, I guess. No final. Daniel, they're done? We're good? Hey, don't be a stranger. Good to see you.
Yes. I'll be on more, for sure.
Back at you. All right, all of you guys, don't be strangers. God bless.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Ciao, everyone. Ciao, ciao.